With great benefits also come some obligations. So the Pickering Fellowship Program does entail a number of additional requirements in addition to the components of completing the graduate degree and the 2 internships. All of our fellows are required to obtain and maintain State Department medical, security, and suitability clearances, maintain a 3.2 GPA throughout the program, meet the State Department Foreign Service entry requirements, and fulfill a 5-year service obligation. We do have quite a bit of detailed information about what the security, medical, and suitability clearances entail on our website, and I'd encourage you to review it in more depth if you are interested in learning about what that process looks like. But I'd like to highlight just a few things because this is a very important part of the obligations of the fellowship. Our fellows, and the moment that we onboard them as fellows in November after the selections process, we will begin the security clearance process. Our fellows will complete the security clearance forms that will get them started with the diplomatic security process. In the case, during that process, our fellows will be asked for a whole host of information and material. If you are, again, interested in learning about what that process looks like, please visit our website for additional information. I do want to mention 2 items that can come up that could prevent folks from obtaining a security clearance, and those often will include issues of drug use or issues of financial irresponsibility. And let me tell you a little bit about what that means. So while there are states in the United States that have legalized the use of marijuana, oftentimes marijuana comes up as a potential issue from preventing someone from receiving a TS clearance. General rule of thumb is that time mitigates. So if you have used in the last year or between a year and 18 months, we'd encourage you to perhaps consider applying in another application cycle. While marijuana use is permitted at the state level, it is still considered a Class 1 federal offense and could prevent you from obtaining a security clearance. For financial irresponsibility, what we're looking at here is how it is that you've managed your finances. It's not so much that you have debt. If you don't have debt, I'd be quite surprised and would give you lots of kudos for that. But if it's not so much of whether or not you have debt, but how you've managed your financial obligations. So what we're considering here is cases where perhaps folks have not paid their taxes, or perhaps have not kept up or maintained communication with creditors where they may be in default and that kind of thing. We're really looking for what diplomatic security is often looking at is your financial management behaviors and what that looks like as a whole. So if you do have individual questions about your current circumstances, we are happy as staff to talk to you about any individual concerns. Obviously, with the caveat that ultimately the decision will be diplomatic security's decision about granting security clearances, and you will ultimately have to make the decision as to whether or not this is the time that you'd like to apply to the program. As a quick note, the clearances do not start until after our fellows are awarded the fellowship program, and we will provide additional review of security clearances and medical clearances at the time that we do our final selections process, where we'll actually invite folks from the department to talk about in more depth about those areas of the obligations. In addition to obtaining and maintaining those clearances, we also require that our fellows maintain a 3.2 throughout their progression through their graduate program. So we do ask our fellows to submit grades after each semester to make sure that they are on track with their academic performance. All of our fellows are also required to take the Foreign Service Officer Test, the written exam, at least one time during the time that they're in the program. Our fellows are not required to pass the written exam, but they do have to take it in the time that they're with the fellowship. If you have taken the FSOT, the written exam, and you have passed it, you are able to submit that passage notification to meet the obligation of taking the FSOT as a Pickering Fellow. All of our fellows are required to take and pass the Foreign Service Officer oral assessment. They do have, from the time that they start their obligations to the fellowship up until the 5-year service obligation is complete, to complete that FSOA, Foreign Service Officer oral assessment requirement. The fellows will have an opportunity to take it while they're in the program, and then again they have up until their 5-year service obligation is done to pass it. And then again, and just to reiterate, there is a 5-year service obligation. So all of our fellows, after they complete their overseas internship, will then enter the Foreign Service and be required to remain for at least 5 years afterward, though we have many of our Pickering Fellows who stay long after the 5-year service obligation because of the nature of the dynamic nature of the Foreign Service. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what the Foreign Service entails in just a minute, and in a different section of this presentation. So the application deadline for the 2022 Pickering Foreign Affairs application is due on September 22nd, 2021 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can access the materials all the way up until the deadline. You do have to submit your application in order for us to submit as final in order for us to consider your application as complete. You can submit as final any time up until the application deadline. You can also edit your application at any time before the deadline. So even though you've submitted as final, maybe you come back and you say, oh, I need to edit this one thing. You can do that. You have, again, up until midnight of the 22nd to do that. You can visit our website, and I would encourage you to, the pickeringfellowship.org website, where we have a whole host of resources, additional resources about crafting a competitive application. We will post our events here. You will also see information about clearances, obligations, and benefits laid out pretty in great detail on our website. If you do have additional follow-on questions, please feel free to email us at pickeringfellowship@howard.edu, and we will get back in touch with you within 48 hours of having received your question. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, where we continually provide updates about the application, provide tips and profiles of our fellows. It is a great place to get to know our fellows and their experiences, and a little bit more about what you might expect as a Pickering Fellow. Thank you again for your interest in the Pickering Fellowship Program, and we look forward to receiving your application.